to pray. There's no angels where I go, only pieces that are broken, scattered dreams across the floor. I'm home.
Alrighty, hello everybody, this is Kirishima here. Now then, so things don't get confusing, I'm going to be referring to the Deku that's with Heller as the fake Deku. Now, let's begin with the fake. He would just be talking with Heller, explaining that he is going to be gone for a couple of days. He needs to go back and talk with the villains, because he does need to play a bit of the long con on them. Heller would just say that he understands, and the fact that he's been here longer than he should have been is already enough proof. So, just make sure that if you encounter Elizabeth, to hide what you're doing here. Alright. Well, I'll be seeing you then, as Deku would immediately walk out the building and start jumping away. Now, as that happens, he would actually be cornered, as you can say, by Elizabeth, as she would have tackled him to the ground while he was in mid-jump, smashing through an actual building, asking him exactly what he's doing here. He would have just told her that it is quite simple, but you do need to be careful. Another hit like that could have killed me. Oh. Well, you're going to need to give me an explanation. As he would give Elizabeth the entire rundown. He's a fake created by a guy named Twice. His quirk basically makes clones, as you can say, but they're not perfect. They do need to be readjusted. So, as he's giving the explanation, he would just ask her exactly what she's doing here, where she would tell him that she's just hunting, and that with the resistance, if they get big enough, she fears that they may one day have the manpower to take her down, especially since they are working with the military on the Blacklight virus. So, she thinks that they'll release it into the city one day and just outnumber her 1,000,000 to 1. Now, while she's saying that, she would explain exactly why she thinks that. Because the abnormal mutations you get in the virus already, they can be extremely amplified by a quirk, since the body will find a certain way to work around the quirk, if not completely dispose of that gene, because it thinks that the quirk may just be useless. Now, because of that, why the hell am I yawning? Because of that, you have Elizabeth explaining more and more about this, as Deku is making this a mental note. Now then, he would just head further on into the red zone, as he does go to a hive, just hiding out for a while. Now, back with the real Deku, him and Uraka, they're still talking. They're explaining exactly what they're supposed to do, as he would give her the rundown. This base, it's a bit more secluded. It's basically a military outpost where they have a news anchor. They give the anchor extremely sensitive information, and they allow them to read it on the air. Basically, the information, it's only what they want the public to know. It's that the virus can be extremely violent, or the virus can do this type of mutation, along with its exact effects and what it can do. It's also used to somewhat try and help people stay calm, albeit in not a good manner. They usually do have heroes appear on it who have been to the red zone, so it at least does have some fame, since All Might has appeared on it frequently, but has not done so in a good while. Now, tonight is an exception, because they do have a specialized segment that explains more and more on Elizabeth Green, along with tracking technology. So, they want to activate it on the air and find out where Elizabeth Green would be. But there is one problem. Whoever's going to be activating it, they are going to be in the same room as this device, so it will be a bit more complicated. Since the scientist isn't infected. So, this is whenever Deku, he would have broken through the front gate of the base in his armored state. As he does so, he would have begun. Now then, as Deku he is busting into the base, he would actually be consuming and killing quite a lot of guards, along with Uraka, who is actually using a version of Deku's armored mode, since she usually uses it to hide her face. But now she's actually able to utilize it in combat, along with her just extending out tendrils and just shooting them out at anyone she can, while her hunters do consume biomass. Now, as that is happening, this is whenever they would finally break through the facility, as you have an entire hall of guards with RPGs pointed at the front door. They would just be watching as Deku, he punches a hole straight through it, and he brings his hand down with his claws, grabbing the handle and immediately just stabbing his claws into it, slashing upwards, completely ripping the locks out of the door, as he would just kick it down. Guards and everyone would immediately begin by just taking out Deku, until the smoke clears, revealing Deku's shield, which has a hole in it, which would regenerate, to the horror of everybody. They put a dent in that thing, but it just repaired itself. That doesn't make sense. Now, Deku begins to walk forward, as one of the guards is trying to reload, while the other ones are all in horror. Deku would just walk up to that guard, grab him by the face, and tell him that he is at least admirable, fighting even whenever he thinks that he's going to die. You won't die, but you won't be human either, as Deku stabs into his gut, infecting him with the virus, dropping him to the ground. As he just tells Uraka that this will be a bit different. Now, the man is still writhing in pain on the ground as his friends are watching in horror. As he walks into the room, they would watch as Deku, he comes on a screen, looking straight at the device. He walks straight up to it as he begins to rip it apart, and immediately tosses it to the side. As the news anchor, they would try to shoot at him, but as soon as they hit him in the face and he falls to the ground, the news anchor would somewhat smile and sigh of relief, as Deku would have gotten back up. They would watch as the hole in his head repairs itself, and he just tells them that that was not a smart idea, or even choice. Anyways, as Deku somewhat stops for a second, cracking his neck, saying that they have a little segment that's going to be replacing them tonight, as he turns around, looking directly at the camera, saying this is going to be special. Now, I am aware that your broadcast is live, so hello everyone. I hope you all are having an amazing night. So, this is going to be where the segment changes. In fact, they have a little bit of a special, as this is whenever the Deku, he would just whistle, as you see Shigaraki appear with everyone else in the League of Villains. Stain walking out too, as he slams down 2 people. He would have tossed Kirishima onto the ground along with Todoroki. Momo and Kendo, they would have been brought out by Deku and Uraka, as he would have showed them off, saying that these are their little guests. Now, do you understand what I'm going to do to them? Along with these pros. And as the camera would pan over, as you see 3 people. You see President Mike, Miss Joke, and, well, what was his name? He was that Phantom Hero. Now, people would just be a bit confused, as the Phantom Hero is just standing there, not doing anything. Deku would just walk over to him and pull off his mask, saying that this is a bit different. The Phantom Hero's power was taken by his boss, so he can't do anything. Which is quite a shame, as Deku would just bring his hands up to his jaw and the other hand to the top of his head, saying that, putting his head down on his hand, saying that it's quite a shame. Well then, without a quirk in this society, as Deku would just snap his neck, saying he's useless, as he would fall to the ground. President Mike would try to scream, but as soon as he does so, nothing happens. People watching as President Mike is just screaming as loud as he can, but his quirk isn't working. Deku's somewhat looking over to him, saying that Aizawa will be fine. In fact, Toga, do you Sorry, not Toga. Uraka, would you mind giving us a little bit of a detail? As she would immediately walk into frame, turning into Aizawa, walking over to Mike, saying that this is quite sad. Would you look at yourself? Even in the face of danger, you still manage to annoy me. Mike. Eraser? Nope, not Eraser anymore. As he would just watch Toga, Jesus, Uraka morph her hand, bringing up a claw to his face. She would just scratch it across his glasses, saying that he is part of this creature now. We call them evolved, or the bioterrorist. However, these kids, they're a bit more dangerous. Don't you understand? We let a dream die halfway, Mike. And now, what do we have to show for it? I'm stuck inside this girl's head. Well, you're about to be executed on TV. Honestly, we should have just stopped being heroes. So, whatever happens tonight, I'm sorry. As Mike would begin to cry. This is whenever Uraka, she would immediately morph back, picking him up off the ground, and snap his neck as he falls. But he didn't die, as you hear him coughing. This is whenever Uraka, she would just walk over to him, as her leg would morph into a blade, as she brings it up, stabbing it down into him, absorbing him, saying that that should at least let those two reunite. So, what's next? Well, as Deku would walk over to Midnight, saying that we have the Miss Midnight. Care to explain why you're here? As she would just turn, cursing out Deku. Deku would somewhat smirk, saying that that's quite lovely. Anyways, as one thing would happen. His arm would morph into an axe, as he would just look at her. Bringing it up to her throat, he would say that they have a little bit of an option. They could kill her or infect her. So, let's see. Yeah, I'm wondering, exactly what would you turn into? Well, as Deku's left arm immediately comes straight out of her chest, saying, "Let's find out," as she falls to the ground, writhing in pain. The camera then pan over to Kendo, Momo, Todoroki, and Kirishima, as they're all just looking at this. Deku walking straight over to Kirishima, bending down, as he would say that this will be a bit interesting. So, I'm giving you an option. Join us, be absorbed, and die, or join us, as evolved. In fact, Momo, your quirk, I do believe it would do something similar to what I got from someone. What? Yes, I call it creativity. You wanna know what it does? As Deku, he would immediately morph his arm into a cannon. Momo was a bit confused. As Deku, he would immediately point it to the wall behind them and blast, as he would send a blast flying. As it makes contact with the wall, it immediately just blows it outwards, as you see it carry on through the rest of the facility. As you watch hunters appear through the walls, saying that this is what it can do. In fact, as he would morph his arm back into a blade, saying that this is something he's had to learn and perfect. But it cost biomass. So, if you want, I can teach you this ability. As he would actually walk over to her, bringing his finger down. Well, bending down, bringing his finger up to her face. As he actually does tap on her forehead, saying that it's all in your head. This is what would be perfect. So, as he immediately just stabs his hand into her gut, pulling it out, revealing that she's now infected, at least turning. He would just walk over to Todoroki, as he would just say that fire ability, it'd be quite useful as an infected, or an evolved. What do you say? Todoroki would blatantly say to Deku to go fuck himself, as he does spit in his face. Deku, being annoyed, would just bash Todoroki's head into his knee as he falls backwards, breaking his nose. He would just say that means that is how that went well. So, how about you, Kirishima? As Kirishima actually does try and stay on Todoroki's side, saying that this isn't what a hero would do. I never said I was a hero. Besides, you are the villains in my story. As Kirishima would just freeze. He's not sure what to tell Deku. He's not trying to think on this. If this allows him to survive, then it would do well. But if it kills him and Deku gets an upgrade, then that means that this is going to pan out horribly. So he thinks that he can at least try doing what Deku's trying to do with Heller, where he can wait it out and take him down. Now, he would just say that he accepts as he just looks down. Kirishima having an arm immediately run through his chest and falling backwards, writhing in pain. As he does walk over to Kendo, asking her exactly what she wants. Now Yurako would actually step in as she does walk over, saying that she's a bit more tough, so you're not going to get a straight answer from her. Now, be truthful, dear. As Kendo just stares over at Yuraka, asking exactly what kind of psychopath is she, as she morphs into Toga. Kendo immediately being surprised even more, as she hasn't seen Toga in quite a while, so she thought that she was just dead. As Yurako would bring her hands up, saying that it's me, Hinama, immediately reverting back, saying that she's been like that for years. Do you really expect me to be fine, be happy with anything that happens to me? That's nothing. Now, this is whenever All Might, he would immediately burst in the facility. As he walks over, he just puts his hands up telling them to let go of the students. As the League of Villains look at All Might, Deku would then just turn back to the camera and say one thing. That is All Might, your symbol of peace. Yes, the uniform has changed, but that is not it. I took one of his fingers, as he would immediately just look to the camera, flipping it off, saying this one in particular. And I also took one of his legs. So, if anyone's interested, just ask All Might what happened. How he failed his own students and let them all die. Along with his time limit. As All Might would just freeze for a second. He forgot Deku knew about that, so he's just been blindly chasing him. Deku would just say that if All Might really wants to save the student, then come here. As All Might would begin to walk forward. Uraka, she would just say that she's just thinking that this isn't going to work. All Might's going to get the student and he's going to immediately leave. Even then he'll be seen as a hero. As she would immediately stab her hand downward into Kendo's neck, infecting her as Kendo would begin to scream. Deku would immediately turn around, realizing that their bargaining chip just ended, telling Kirigiri to open a portal, as he would open it behind them. Deku, using his tendrils, would immediately reach outward, grabbing onto these four, pulling them through. Except Deku's tendril, he does one thing. Whenever it does stab into Todoroki's back, you actually watch as most of his biomass leaves his body, leaving him in somewhat of a shell, or weakened state. Now, as that happened, All Might would have been able to actually break the tendril out of his back, as he would have tried pulling it outwards. Deku would just cut it off, as the portal would close. Now then, with that being said, Todoroki would be taken to the hospital, where he has lost about 50% to around 60% of his body. His organs are in critical condition, along with his actual muscle and bones, finding that he will be in the hospital for quite a long time, or at least bound to a bed for the rest of his life, if he's lucky, since the alternative would be him dying. But with Recovery Girl, she would at least help him make progress. Now then, All Might, he would have just looked down at this tendril in his hand, as he would have handed it over to the military to study. So, you have 3 new additions to the Evolved, and one hell of a team, as eventually these 3 would wake up. Now, they're a bit more confused as they feel exactly what Deku and Uraka feel all the time. As Kirishima, whenever he actually does wake up, he can hear sounds from outside, being a bit more confused. Deku would have walked into the room as he would greet these 3, telling them that they're the next step in evolution, and that the workarounds should be done. What? Kirishima, I really should have explained it better. You're a dumbass. Hey, listen. Your version of the Blacklight virus, it's different from everyone. In fact, none of you have the same even though I infected you. Now listen, even though I infected you, it starts out like a quirk, in its infancy. Except, it's different. Whenever you consume your first person, that is whenever you'll, as they would immediately cut Deku off, saying that they're not going to do that. Deku would somewhat smirk, saying that they don't really have a choice. Now then, Follow me, otherwise I'll leave all three of you locked in this room. And next week, I can come back in and get the survivor. As they would all immediately just stop talking. Deku would just say that that's what he thought. Now, he would put them in separate rooms and lock them in. As that is where we're going to be leaving this off. Now, I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. And, yeah. This is where I'll be leaving it for the rest of the day until I get home from work. Fucking yay. That's gonna be fun.